Why would a billionaire heir offer marriage to a woman he met only once? And why was I the one he chose? The question slammed through my skull as I stood barefoot on cold marble, staring at Adrian Valnew, York's most dangerously charismatic empire builder, while the city bled gold behind him. His penthouse felt like a throne room carved from glass and moonlight, but his eyes held something darker. "Say yes," he murmured, as if commanding markets, storms, entire nations. I felt the night tighten around us, the scent of his cologne tangling with fear and desire. I didn't belong here, my thrift store dress proved it, but the hunger in his gaze said I wasn't leaving. Not until I understood why a man who could buy anything needed me. When he reached for the contract, my pulse snapped. Before I could read it, the elevator chimed, and the woman who stepped out froze him like a ghost returned. Adrian didn't turn, but his grip on the contract whitened. I recognized the woman only from tabloids, Liana Corsetti, the heiress rumored to have shattered his heart so completely he vowed never to fall again. She was perfection sculpted in diamonds, her gown liquid silver, her smile made of knives. "You finally replaced me," she purred, eyes slicing toward my trembling frame. I felt invisible and exposed at once, a trespasser in a world where love was currency and I had nothing to bargain with. Adrian's silence was thunder waiting to break. He stepped closer to me, shielding me with a body trained in power and precision. "She's not your concern," he said, voice low, lethal. But Liana's gaze drifted to the unsigned contract in my hands, a wife-for-hire arrangement. "Really, Adrian?" My breath hitched. Wife-for-hire. So that's what this was. And yet, his eyes on me felt anything but transactional. I followed Adrian into a private study sealed by soundproof glass, my heartbeat ricocheting off the polished walnut walls. "Ignore her," he said, pacing toward a floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked Manhattan like he owned every blinking light. The city worshipped him, but close up he looked human-strained, breathing heavy, jaw clenched around unspoken storms. "Is it true?" I whispered. "A contract marriage." He turned slowly, and the confession in his eyes made the air tremble. "I need a wife before the board vote. A real one. Someone the media won't tear apart." His gaze dropped to my lips for half a beat too long. "You're the first person who wasn't trying to manipulate me." A laugh threatened, half hysterical, because everything about this felt like manipulation. Yet when he stepped close enough that heat radiated between us, my body betrayed me. "If you agree," he murmured, "you'll be protected." Protected from what? His silence answered nothing. The limousine slid through city traffic like a shadow given wheels. But inside, tension pooled thick as velvet. Adrian sat beside me, his cologne warm and dark, every breath brushing my skin like a question I wasn't ready to answer. I held the contract in my lap, pages of impossible terms binding me to him for 12 months. 12 months pretending to be the wife of a man who didn't believe in love. 12 months living in a world built on secrets and money. "Why me?" I asked again, softer this time. His eyes, reflected in the tinted window, flickered with something raw. "Because you didn't flinch when I told you the truth," he said. "Everyone else wants the story of Adrian Vale." He looked at me like a man. Heat tightened in my chest, but before I could reply, the limo lurched to a stop. The door opened, flashing lights, paparazzi, and someone shouted my name. I was yanked from the comfortable darkness of the limo into a blinding storm of camera bursts and screams. Reporters surged like a pack starving for blood. Microphones thrust forward, voices overlapping. "Is it true? Are you pregnant? How long have you been seeing him?" Panic clawed my throat. I'd never been photographed in my entire life, let alone interrogated by tabloids. Adrian's arm wrapped around my waist, firm and possessive, pulling me against him until I could feel the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "Stay close," he murmured into my hair, and suddenly the chaos muted. His scent grounded me, strong enough to anchor a collapsing world. He guided me into the hotel ballroom, a charity gala glittering with chandeliers and billionaires. But whispers rippled instantly, eyes locked on me with predatory curiosity. And standing near the champagne tower was a man whose stare cut sharper than the cameras. He whispered, "She's not the one." I froze. The man, a tall, impossibly composed figure in a bespoke midnight suit, studied me with cool calculation, as if measuring my worth against invisible scales. Adrian stiffened beside me. "Not tonight, Damien," he warned. Damien Vale, his brother, the CFO rumored to rival Adrian in everything but mercy. Damien stepped closer, voice smooth as silk over steel. "You're making a mistake bringing her here. The board will see right through this." His gaze flicked to me, lingering a moment too long, stirring something unsettling in my stomach. Rivalry, danger, something unspoken crackling between the two brothers. Adrian's fingers tightened around my waist, staking a claim he had no right to yet. I didn't move. "Careful," Damien murmured. "Some gambles cost more than you can afford." Before Adrian could respond, Damien leaned close, whispering to me alone, "If you're smart, you'll walk away before you drown." Then he slipped into the crowd. As music swelled and diamonds glittered like constellations, I tried to breathe through the suffocating perfumed air. Adrian led me deeper into the gala, nodding stiffly at investors and dignitaries, but the tension clinging to him was impossible to ignore. His shoulders rigid, his jaw set like stone. What did your brother mean? I asked quietly. Adrian didn't answer at first. Instead, he lifted a hand, brushing a stray curl from my cheek with surprising tenderness. He likes to sabotage things he can't control. His touch lingered, warm, distracting, dangerous. Guests watched us with envious fascination, believing this was passion instead of strategy. You need to look convincing, he whispered, his breath grazing my ear. Tonight we're a couple. My pulse skittered. Pretending was easy when his hand slid down my back and rested at my hip. But when a server stumbled near us, spilling wine, Adrian pulled me closer with genuine instinct. We stood on the balcony overlooking Fifth Avenue, cool night air brushing my fevered skin. Adrian had pulled me out of the crowd after noticing how overwhelmed I'd become, and now the city murmured below us like a restless heartbeat. I'm not cut out for this world, I said, gripping the stone railing. Everyone could tell I don't belong. Adrian stepped behind me, his presence a warm wall at my back. You belong wherever you choose to stand, he said, voice low, rougher than before. His reflection appeared beside mine in the glass door, broad shoulders, perfectly tailored suit, eyes that held storms and secrets. If we do this, I whispered, I need to know you won't humiliate me. He touched my shoulder lightly, thumb grazing bare skin. I'd burn the city down before I let anyone harm you. My breath stilled, and that was the exact moment the balcony door slammed open behind us. Liana stood in the doorway, framed by golden light, her expression carved in jealousy and triumph. Adrian, the board chair is here and he's asking for your fiancée. The word hit like a slap. I wasn't ready. Adrian knew it. For a heartbeat, he hesitated, gaze flicking between the woman who once destroyed him and the woman he was using to rebuild his empire. We'll be there, he said tightly. Liana smirked and disappeared into the ballroom. Adrian turned back to me. Listen, he said urgently. The chair is old-fashioned. He needs to see chemistry, trust, absolute certainty. My stomach flipped. You mean more pretending? His gaze dropped to my mouth, lust and restraint warring behind his eyes. Yes, he breathed, but this time it has to look real. He offered his hand. The air crackled around us. When I took it, he didn't let go, and together we walked into a trap I didn't yet see. The board chair waited beneath a towering chandelier, his stern gaze dissecting every inch of me as Adrian introduced us. I forced a smile, lifting my chin despite trembling nerves. Adrian's hand remained at the small of my back, steadying me, guiding me, possessing me. She's remarkable, he said, and for a split second his voice softened as though he meant it. The chair leaned in. A marriage is a lifetime commitment, not a performance. Adrian's fingers twitched against my spine. I'm aware, he said coolly, but the chair's sharp eyes didn't leave mine. Do you love him? The question punched the air from my lungs. Adrian tensed. Cameras flashed, conversations hushed. My throat closed. I didn't know what answer would ruin us more. Before I could speak, a server approached urgently. Mr. Val, there's a situation. Security needs you both immediately. Adrian took my hand. What now? He muttered. But the fear in the server's eyes said it was something big. Security escorted us down a corridor behind the ballroom, the music fading into a dull echo. What happened? Adrian demanded. The guard hesitated, glancing at me before opening a door to a small security office. Sir, you need to see this. On the monitor, surveillance footage played grainy, black and white, time-stamped 10 minutes earlier. My breath snagged when I saw myself on the... Adrian's gaze locked on the photo on the necklace lying against the imposter's throat, and something in him cracked. The necklace had been his mother's, a relic he'd said he never shared with anyone. I didn't give it to her, I whispered, voice shaking. I've never even seen it before. The vault's cold air pressed in as Adrian stepped closer, his breath trembling with betrayal he didn't want to feel. Someone wants me to doubt you, he murmured, and the terrifying thing is, it's working. My heart stung. He reached out, thumb brushing my wrist, a tender gesture fighting the storm inside him. But before he could say more, Damien snapped. Enough. The board will hear of this. Adrian's head turned slowly, jaw sharpening. No, they'll hear nothing. He pulled me against him, protective instincts blazing. Even as confusion strangled me, one truth pulsed louder. He didn't know whether to shield me or suspect me. They escorted us from the vault, but Adrian didn't release my hand until the door sealed shut behind us. We slipped into a private elevator, walls mirrored gold, our reflections distorted by fear and something more fragile. Look at me, he said, voice low. I lifted my eyes, and the elevator seemed to still. If you're innocent, I will find who did this, he swore. But if you're lying, I'm not, I breathed, stepping closer without meaning to. Heat sparked between us. His fingers slid along my jaw, hesitant yet hungry, as though he wanted to kiss me but feared what that would mean. You unsettle me, he whispered. I don't let anyone close. Ever the elevator chimed before our lips touched, slicing the moment. Doors opened to a quiet hallway leading to his private library. Adrian exhaled hard. We talked there, no cameras. But as we stepped inside, shadows stirred. Someone had been watching. The library glowed with amber sconces and walls lined with leather-bound secrets. A subtle scent of cedar and old paper filled the vaulted room, soothing in ways I didn't expect. Sit, Adrian said, though his voice held more plea than command. He remained standing, shoulders tense, as if proximity to me was dangerous. I didn't steal anything, I said, breaking the silence. Someone set me up. His eyes flicked to mine, tortured. I want to believe you. He turned, pulling a velvet box from a hidden drawer. Inside lay the necklace from the footage. My breath froze. This should have been locked away, he murmured. But it wasn't. Someone planted it. A whisper of fear slid down my spine. Meaning someone close to you wants to destroy us. Adrian stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingertips trembled. Tell me everything about your past. Every secret, because I can't fight shadows I don't understand. I hesitated, fingers twisting together. My past wasn't dangerous, just painful, humiliating, not meant for penthouse air. I grew up nowhere special, I said finally. 2 jobs, small apartment, no family. I'm no one. Adrian's breath hitched, as if the words physically struck him. Don't ever say that again. His tone bordered on feral. He stepped closer, until the faint warmth of his suit brushed my arms. You think being born rich made me someone? He lifted my chin. Money built walls. You're the first person I've wanted to let inside them. My heart squeezed painfully. Before I could respond, a soft click echoed. The library doors drifted open. A woman entered, older, elegant, her expression carved with grief. Adrian froze. Mother, she stared at him with shattered accusation. How could you bring her here? She whispered, trembling, when you know exactly who she is. My knees nearly buckled. Mrs. Vale, I stuttered, but she held up a hand, trembling with years of suppressed rage. You should have told him, she said to me. Before any of this began. Adrian's brows pulled tight. Told me what? She stepped closer, retrieving something from her clutch of faded photo. When she pressed it into his hand, his entire body went still. Her father, she whispered. My blood turned to ice. The photo showed a man I barely remembered, my estranged father, standing beside a younger Mr. Vale in a press conference. He wasn't a simple accountant, Mrs. Vale said. He was the whistleblower who nearly destroyed our company 20 years ago. My breath vanished. Adrian stared at me as if seeing a ghost. You knew? No, I gasped. I swear my father left when I was 6. I had no idea. But the storm rising in his eyes said doubt was devouring him faster than truth could reach. The library's fire crackled, mocking the ice spreading between us. Adrian paced, raking a hand through his hair. You expect me to believe this is coincidence? He snapped. You appear out of nowhere, fit every requirement, and now your father turns out to be the man who almost ruined my family's legacy. Tears burned my eyes. I didn't even know his name, I whispered. He disappeared. His chest heaved, torn between logic and something deeper. Either someone is manipulating both of us, he said, or you're part of it. Pain sliced through me more sharply than any threat. I stepped back. Is that what you really think? He swallowed hard. I don't know what to think. Silence smothered the room until I could barely breathe. Suddenly a crash echoed from the hallway. Adrian whipped toward the door. Stay here. But I followed anyway because the look in his eyes said danger had finally stepped out of the shadows. The hallway looked deserted at first, but a second crash shattered the illusion. Adrian pushed me behind him instinctively, his body tense, predatory. He approached the corner, muscles coiled, yet when we turned it, the intruder was already gone. Only a shattered frame lay on the floor, glass glittering like tiny shards of warning. The portrait inside was of Adrian as a teenager, standing beside his brother Damien. But the photo had been ripped straight down the middle, splitting the brothers apart. Adrian stiffened. This wasn't random, he muttered. Someone wants to break every bond around me. He crouched, brushing a glass shard with his thumb. Then he turned to me. I'll have security sweep the penthouse. You think Damien? I don't know. But the grim darkness in his eyes said he feared the answer. He reached for my hand again, hesitant, conflicted, needful. Stay close tonight, he murmured. I don't want you out of my sight. We retreated to a quieter wing of the penthouse, a place Adrian rarely brought anyone. A soft golden lamp illuminated shelves of rare first editions and the clean scent of parchment. He closed the door behind us, leaning against it as though the weight of the world sat on his shoulders. I should send you away, he said hoarsely. It would be safer for both of us. The word sliced deep, but the anguish in his eyes held me still. Do you want to? I asked. He shook his head slowly, stepping closer until his breath warmed my forehead. No, his fingertips grazed my cheek, featherlight, as though touching me might break something sacred inside him. I should protect the company, my family. But every time you walk away from me, I can't breathe. Our lips hovered inches apart, electricity trembling in the space between us. But a sharp knock shattered the moment. Damien's voice. We need to talk. Damien entered without waiting, eyes flicking from me to Adrian with cutting precision. Security cleared the level, he said, but someone disabled the penthouse cameras for 7 minutes. His gaze sharpened. Care to explain why? Adrian stepped between us. Someone's framing her, he snapped. And you're enjoying it too much. Damien tilted his head. I'm enjoying watching you lose control. His tone softened, oddly sincere. But this wasn't me. Adrian blinked, momentarily unguarded. Damien continued. Whoever is playing you playing both of you isn't finished. He handed Adrian a note found slipped under the penthouse door. 2 words, scrawled in red ink. She knows. My skin crawled. Knows what I whispered. Damien exhaled. Whatever was stolen from the vault, it wasn't just corporate data. Adrian opened his mouth to demand more, but Damien raised a hand. I'll tell you both, but not here. Then his eyes met mine. And you're not going to like it. Damien led us into a concealed room behind the library, a surveillance hub humming with screens and encrypted consoles. This stays between us, he muttered. The quantum drive wasn't just data, it held files connected to the veiled disappearance. Adrian stiffened violently. I felt the air shift. Damien, don't. But Damien pressed on. Your father didn't die in an accident. Someone made sure the truth stayed buried. Adrian's hands curled into fists. Why are you telling her this? Because, Damien said quietly, your father's last investigation was linked to her father. My knees weakened. What? Your father wasn't just a whistleblower, Damien said. He was investigating someone inside the Veil Empire, and when he vanished, so did the evidence. Adrian stared at me, devastation and dread warring. If her father was involved. Damien nodded grimly. Then someone doesn't want the 2 of you uncovering what really happened. The room fell silent, and suddenly, nothing felt accidental. We returned to the main suite in silence, the truth settling like smoke thick enough to choke. Adrian walked ahead, shoulders stiff, fighting ghosts I couldn't see. I followed, heart pounding with 100 impossible revelations. Adrian, I whispered, but he didn't turn. Talk to me. He stopped abruptly at the window, city lights shimmering across the hard lines of his face. All my life, he said quietly, I've been told to trust no one, not even myself. Then you walked into my world, and everything felt different. He turned, eyes burning with painful honesty. Now you're tied to the deepest wound I've ever carried. I stepped closer despite the jagged truth between us. If our fathers were connected, we need to know how. We can find answers together. His breath hitched. But if those answers destroy us, then we face it anyway, I said. He reached for me hesitant, shaken when his phone vibrated violently. Caller ID unknown. The message, I have what you lost. Meet me alone. Adrian stared at the message like it was a loaded weapon pointed at the last piece of hope he had left. "I'm meeting them," he said. "Alone." My pulse jumped. No, it's exactly what they want. But he was already slipping on his coat, jaw set with a dangerous resolve. Rain smeared across the glass beyond him, the storm swallowing Manhattan. "Every second that drive is missing, your father and might get dragged deeper into whatever this is." He paused, eyes softening with something heartbreakingly real. "I won't let you be collateral damage." I grabbed his sleeve, desperate. "You think I care about a contract when you're walking into a trap?" His breath tangled with mine, too close, too charged. "I need you alive," he whispered. "That's all that matters." And then he was gone, leaving a hollow silence in his wake, and a fear so sharp it felt like losing him before I ever had him. Hours passed with no word. The storm worsened, thunder rattling the penthouse windows like fists demanding answers. I paced the marble floors until my legs ached, replaying everything: his touch, his hesitation, the almost kiss that tormented every breath. The contract sat on the table, its pages stark and clinical, mocking the mess we'd become. Midnight crawled in, heavy and merciless. Finally, the door burst open. Adrian staggered inside, soaked to the bone, face shadowed with fury and something raw fear. "What happened?" I whispered, cupping his cold face. He flinched at the tenderness. "They didn't show," he said, "but someone left a clue. A warehouse near the river." I wrapped a towel around him, hands trembling. He caught my wrists. "I can't keep pretending I don't feel this," he said, voice breaking. "But the closer we get, the more danger you're in." His forehead touched mine. "I don't know how to protect you from me." The next morning, sunlight pierced the room, a cruel contrast to the darkness pooling inside us. Adrian sat at the edge of the bed fully dressed, tie knotted too tightly as if he hadn't slept at all. "The board meeting is in 3 days, he muttered. "They're expecting an engagement announcement. My mother, the shareholders, everyone." My heart twisted. "And you think choosing me will destroy you?" He turned sharply, eyes blazing. "No, choosing you destroys the world they built for me." His breath shuddered. "But losing you," he couldn't finish. I reached for his hand, and he allowed it, fingers curling around mine like he'd been starving for the contact. "We'll face it," I said softly. "Together." But he pulled away, tortured. "You don't understand. They have power, influence. They'll crush you without blinking." I stood, lifting his chin. "I'm not afraid of them." His voice cracked. "But I am." We went to the warehouse that night. The moon hung low, casting silver shadows across rusted metal and broken windows. Adrian kept me behind him, protective and volatile, every muscle ready for war. Inside, the smell of dust and cold machinery clung to the air. "Stay close," he murmured, brushing my cheek as if the touch could anchor him. We followed faint footprints to a back office. There, a single envelope lay atop a steel desk. Adrian opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a photo, grainy, old, devastating. My father, alive, speaking to a man I recognized from the Vale files, the former coup who vanished the same year Adrian's father did. "He didn't disappear," I whispered. "He went into hiding." Adrian's jaw clenched as he gripped the photo. "And someone wants us to find him." He looked at me, breath unsteady. "Everything we thought we knew is wrong." Driving back, silence thickened between us, electric and unbearable. Streetlights slid across Adrian's face, carving shadows of restraint and longing. I reached for his hand, unable to stand the cold space between us. His fingers tightened instantly, as if he'd been waiting. "I keep thinking," he said hoarsely, "if we'd met under different circumstances." "We didn't," I whispered. "We met in this messy, impossible moment, and maybe that's why it matters." He exhaled a shuddering breath and pulled the car into a deserted overlook above the city. Rain pattered softly against the windshield, gentle compared to the storm inside us. He turned toward me, eyes dark with everything he'd refused to feel. "I can't lose you," he confessed, "but wanting you is the most dangerous thing I've ever done." I leaned closer. "Then don't want me." His voice broke. "I already do." He kissed me like restraint was a language he no longer spoke. Fierce, desperate, as if the world outside vanished and only the shape of my mouth could remind him he was alive. I melted into him, fingers tangling in his damp hair, feeling the tension unravel from his body in trembling waves. The rain grew heavier, drumming the roof as his lips traced down my jaw, his breath warm, reverent. "Tell me to stop," he whispered against my skin, "and I will." But I didn't. I pulled him closer, anchoring him the same way he anchored me. When he finally rested his forehead against mine, chest heaving, I felt something shift, fragile, terrifying, real. "This changes everything," he murmured. "Good," I whispered, "because pretending was destroying us." He cupped my face, eyes shining with love he couldn't yet admit. Then we faced the consequences. Neither of us knew how steep they'd become. We walked into the penthouse hand in hand, only to find his mother waiting, eyes rimmed with fury and heartbreak. "It ends now," she said. "The board wants an official statement tomorrow. They're demanding you announce your engagement to Liana." Adrian stiffened. "I won't. You have no choice," she argued. "If you don't, they'll strip you of voting power. They'll destroy the company your father died to protect." I stepped forward, voice trembling. "He deserves happiness. Even if this isn't about happiness, she snapped. This is survival. Adrian moved between us, his voice iron. I won't sacrifice her. She looked at him with devastating sadness. Then you're sacrificing everything else. She placed a folder on the table. Inside was proof that the board had the power and intent to replace him. Adrian's hand shook as he closed it. They're making you choose, she whispered, and you know what your father would expect. That night, we lay on opposite sides of the same bed, inches apart yet worlds away. Adrian stared at the ceiling, tension slicing the space between us. If I fight them, the company collapses, he said quietly. Everything my father built gone. Tears stung my eyes. And if you choose them, his stare drifted toward me, broken. I lose you. The distance between us felt unbearable. I reached for him, fingers brushing the back of his hand, igniting sparks even in silence. Maybe love isn't supposed to be easy, I whispered. Maybe it's choosing each other even when it costs everything. He turned, eyes glowing with tortured devotion. But I can't let you pay the price. I swallowed hard. Then let me decide what I'm willing to risk. He touched my cheek with trembling fingers. If I choose you, there is no going back. I leaned into his palm. Then don't look back. The next morning, news broke photos of us kissing in the car. Headlines exploded, social media ignited. The board called an emergency meeting. Adrian stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, phone buzzing with threats and demands. They think you've corrupted me, he muttered. That you're manipulating me into destroying the company. He turned to me, anguish twisting his expression. I can't keep letting them use you as a weapon against me. He strode to his desk, grabbed the contract and tore it clean in half. I gasped. Adrian, what are you doing? Ending the lie, he said. If I'm going to lose everything, it won't be for a contract marriage. His breath hitched. It'll be because I chose you. Hearing it almost broke me. But before I could respond, Damien burst in. Adrian, you need to see this. He held up a tablet showing a live news broadcast. My father's face, older alive, appeared on screen. I stumbled back, knees weak. He's alive, I whispered. Adrian caught my arm before I collapsed. On screen, my father spoke shakily into the camera, guarded by two anonymous figures. If you want the truth, he said, meet me tonight at Pier 38. Come alone, both of you. The screen cut to black. Damien cursed. It's a trap. Adrian shook his head. It's our only lead. My heartbeat punched against my ribs. If we go, they could kill us. Adrian cupped my face with both hands, eyes fierce. If we don't, we lose the truth forever. He pressed his forehead to mine. I promise I won't let anything happen to you, Damien growled. You can't promise that. Adrian didn't look away from me. Watch me, and for the first time I believed him more than I feared the danger waiting. Storm clouds gathered as we drove toward the pier, the sky bruised with tension. Adrian kept one hand on the wheel, the other tangled with mine, thumb stroking slow circles that grounded me even as the world tilted. If something goes wrong, he said softly, you run. Not without you, I whispered. I'm serious. So am I. He shot me a look half agony, half devotion. You've changed everything. I leaned closer, my breath brushing his neck. And you're afraid you'll lose it. His jaw tightened. I'm afraid I don't deserve it. I rested my head against his shoulder. You deserve more than you let yourself believe. He exhaled shakily, pressing a kiss to the top of my head, unexpected, tender, devastating. When the pier finally came into view, he whispered, stay behind me. Always behind me. Always behind me. I nodded, but fate had other plans. The pier was deserted except for a single figure standing beneath a flickering street lamp. My father, older, thinner eyes haunted. You came, he whispered when he saw me. My throat closed. Why did you disappear? He looked past me toward Adrian, fear sharpening his features. Because your family was never meant to cross paths again. Adrian stepped forward, voice lethal. What do you know about my father's death? My father swallowed more than anyone ever wanted me to. He held up a small device, the missing quantum drive. This holds everything, the truth about both our families. He handed it to Adrian. But they'll kill us all before they let it surface. Footsteps echoed behind us, multiple fast. Adrian shoved me behind him. Run, my father yelled. Men emerged from the shadows, guns drawn. And in the split second before chaos exploded, Adrian whispered, I choose you, no matter what happens next. Sunlight spilled across the penthouse floor, golden and warm, scattering across marble that had once felt cold and impossible. Adrian moved in the kitchen, apron tied clumsily, making coffee the way he insisted I preferred black, no sugar. Steam curled between us, a quiet intimacy I had never imagined. I leaned against the doorway, watching him pour the cups with the care of someone tending a fragile treasure. His hair was mussed from sleep, and his tie hung loosely from the chair, unbuttoned collar softening the usual armor. "Good morning," he said, voice husky. I smiled, a pure, uncalculated joy rising in my chest. He handed me a cup, fingers brushing mine lightly, sending sparks through years of fear, chaos, and desperation. For the first time, this penthouse felt like home, not a battlefield. And I realized, with a quiet, overwhelming certainty, that this was forever. We lingered in the living room, feet bare, coffee warming our hands. Adrian traced the rim of my cup absent-mindedly, eyes softening in ways only I saw. "You saved me," he murmured, more to himself than me. I shook my head. "We saved each other." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, gaze intense yet tender. "I don't know who I'd be without you," he confessed. I reached out, touching his cheek gently, feeling the heat, the life pulsing beneath. "You're alive now," I whispered. "You're here. That's what matters." His lips quirked in a rare shy smile, then pressed against my forehead, slow, reverent. The chaos, the betrayals, the storms, it all felt distant now, replaced by the quiet certainty that we had carved out a space where love didn't need permission, contracts, or power. It just existed, pure and unshakable. Later, we wandered to the balcony, city lights stretching like constellations beneath us. The skyline glittered, distant and infinite, but in Adrian's arms the world was contained. He held me close, chin resting atop my head, and I felt the steady thrum of his heartbeat, a rhythm that had become my anchor. "Do you ever think about how we started?" I asked softly, eyes scanning his profile against the glowing horizon. "Contract, pretend, danger, fear," he chuckled, low, shaking his head. "It's absurd, isn't it, that all of that led here?" I smiled against his chest, inhaling the scent that had haunted me for months. "Absurd," I echoed, but in the quiet warmth between us, absurd became miraculous. We stayed like that, wrapped around each other, the city breathing beneath us, no words necessary beyond the comfort of being together. Breakfast became a ritual, small and grounding. Adrian insisted on cooking, clattering pans with an earnestness that made me laugh. I perched on the counter, watching him move, noticing every curve of his shoulder, the tilt of his jaw, the intensity that softened only for me. He caught me staring, and the corner of his mouth lifted in a smirk, planning to steal my heart again. He teased, eyes dancing. I leaned closer. "You don't need to steal it. You already have it." His expression softened, the usual guarded steel replaced by something wholly human. "And you," he said, "have my soul." The words hung between us, weightless yet profound. No contracts, no deception, just the quiet truth that had taken months of storms to surface. I reached for his hand, interlacing fingers, and for the first time, it wasn't survival, it was peace. One afternoon, Adrian led me to the private library, where shelves of leather-bound books smelled faintly of cedar and old paper. He stopped at the center of the room, turning to face me fully. "I promised I'd choose you," he said softly. "But I don't want to just choose you anymore. I want to make it official, properly. No contracts, no games, no conditions." He knelt, hands gripping mine, eyes bright with vulnerability and hope. I felt the breath leave me. "Marry me," he whispered, a single word heavy with years of longing and chaos. Tears blurred my vision as I nodded. "Yes," I breathed. The world narrowed to us, the library glowing with the warmth of certainty. And when he slid the ring onto my finger, it wasn't a transaction, it was a declaration, a promise forged through storms and secrets finally laid bare. Evenings became a quiet celebration of ordinary life. We cooked together, danced slowly in the kitchen when no one watched, and read beside floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the city like a living painting. I would catch him glancing at me, eyes alight with the knowledge that I was no longer a contract or a shadow of someone else's expectations. He whispered compliments I had never dared to believe, held me close with a devotion that made my chest ache, and I whispered back the words that had built in my heart for months. "I love you," not in a desperate, fleeting way, but in a steady, unbreakable truth that had survived danger, betrayal, and fear. He responded with a kiss that said more than words ever could, sealing the promise of a future neither of us could have imagined at the start. Adrian finally introduced me to the board, not as a contract wife but as the woman who had saved his soul. We walked into the meeting hand in hand, confident, unflinching. Heads turned, whispers faded in the face of undeniable authenticity. "This is my partner," he announced. "Not a business transaction, not a compromise, but someone who has been with me through every storm." The board stared, stunned, before a reluctant acknowledgement spread. I felt Adrian's fingers tighten around mine, the quiet electricity of touch grounding me. In that moment, I realized the world that had once seemed so rigid and unyielding had shifted for us, bending not to power, but to the love that had survived against all odds. Night fell, And we returned to the balcony, the city glittering beneath us, endless and alive. Adrian wrapped his arms around me from behind, chin resting atop my shoulder. I closed my eyes, feeling his heartbeat press against mine. "You're my home," he whispered. "Always." I pressed back into him, smiling softly. "And you're mine," I said. The wind caught the hem of my dress, the distant sounds of traffic a lullaby. We swayed gently, unspoken promises held in every glance and sigh. "We've survived everything," I murmured. "Storms, enemies, secrets, fear." He kissed the side of my head. "Yes," he agreed, voice tender. "And we'll survive anything else together." In that quiet, I realized love wasn't just enduring it, was choosing each other every single day. A morning rain tapped against the windows, drumming a soft rhythm across the penthouse. Adrian brewed coffee, the aroma curling warmly between us, a private ritual that grounded the chaos we'd left behind. I watched him, the city stretching beyond, a distant hum of life we no longer feared. "It's perfect," I whispered, leaning against the counter. "What's perfect?" he asked, eyes crinkling with curiosity. "Us," I said, heart full. He handed me a cup, fingertips brushing mine, sending sparks that no storm could erase. "Us," he echoed. And in that simple, quiet exchange, I felt the magnitude of everything we had endured, the depth of trust and love that had bloomed through danger and deception. A cup of coffee, a shared glance, and suddenly, forever felt possible, tangible, safe. We explored the city together, not as strangers bound by a contract, but as a couple claiming a shared life. Window shopping became adventures, late-night dinners became sacred rituals. Adrian held my hand in restaurants, protective yet light, eyes warning anyone who dared approach. I laughed freely, the weight of pretense lifted. One evening he kissed me beneath the glow of a street lamp, rain soft against our faces. "I never want to go back," he murmured. "Me neither," I whispered. In that kiss, I felt every stolen moment, every near loss, every fear and longing melt away. It was not desperation, it was surrender. And for the first time, surrender felt like the most powerful choice we had ever made. Adrian insisted on recreating our first night in the penthouse, but this time, no secrets, no fear. We danced in the living room, the city lights painting our shadows on the walls, his hands on my waist, my arms around his neck. We moved slowly, deliberately, savoring the now. "Do you remember how we started?" he whispered in my ear. I smiled, cheek pressed to his shoulder. "A lie, a storm, danger, everything but love." He laughed softly, pulling back just enough to look at me. "Everything led to this," he said, eyes shining. "To you," I reached up, cupping his face, eyes glistening. "To us," I whispered, and in that moment I realized love wasn't built on perfection, it was forged in chaos and tempered by trust. Adrian surprised me one evening with a small, intimate ceremony on the balcony. Candles flickered, wind rustling gently. No family, no board, just us and the city sprawled beneath. "I want to make every vow I never got to say the first time," he murmured, slipping a new ring onto my finger. "I vow to choose you, not for duty, not for expectation, but because my world without you would be nothing." I laughed softly, tears spilling, pressing my forehead to his. "I vow to meet every storm with you, every joy, every fear, because this is the only life I want." His lips found mine, tender, reverent, a culmination of everything we'd survived. The city lights blinked below, witnesses to promises finally made real. And in that kiss I understood that love could be wild, chaotic and terrifying, and yet entirely worth it. We spent Sunday mornings wrapped in soft sheets, feet tangled, coffee mugs steaming in the sunlight. Adrian hummed softly while flipping through old records, the music a backdrop to quiet laughter. I caught him watching me, eyes soft, entirely mine. "You make this life magical," I whispered. "Not me," he said, brushing hair behind my ear. "We do this together." The penthouse felt lived in, alive, no longer a fortress but a home. Every corner held memory of storms survived and laughter earned. I leaned against him, feeling the depth of shared trust, of love proven in extremes. "I never thought I'd feel safe like this," I admitted. And now his voice was quiet, unshakable. "Always," he said. And in those two syllables I felt the weight of eternity. One evening we watched the sunset from the balcony, wrapped in a soft throw, feet brushing, shoulders touching. "Do you ever think about contracts?" I asked, voice thoughtful. Adrian chuckled softly. "Yes. Funny thing, they used to define me, limit me, control me." I pressed closer. Now, he said, tightening his hold, "they're gifts. Reminders of what we've survived, that love can exist even in the most impossible places." I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Strangers became each other's world, I whispered. He smiled, deep and full, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. "Exactly," he murmured. "Exactly that." And for the first time, with city lights sparkling below and the warmth of each other's bodies anchoring us, forever didn't feel like a word. It felt like breath, like heartbeat, like home.